Howdy guys, I'm Aden from Lions Honor Gaming, and welcome back to Let's Play Super Mario World. This is episode 2 of our post-com series, where the gameplay has already been recorded and I'm just simply commentating over it, trying to have a chill time. Hope you guys had fun with episode 1, hope y'all enjoyed it, and I hope episode 2 is even better, because I think it should be. We're starting off today with Vanilla Dome, which is the third sort of major area in Mario World. And I'm not gonna lie to you, but I struggled with this area. I know. I should not have. This should be like a relatively easy part of the game. But like, take this for example. All I'm trying to do is get Yoshi through a hole. And I can't even do that shit right. So a lot of the Vanilla Dome gameplay you'll be seeing today is not my best per se. It's definitely the easiest thing I struggled with when playing this game. So that's why instead of just commentating about the gameplay specifically or, you know, mention level-to-level stuff like I did in episode 1, I think this time around we're just going to kind of talk about a topic. And if I have anything interesting to point out about the game, I will. So I think that should be the approach we take. But what topic are we going to talk about then, if that's the case? Well, I figured I could talk about the Game Awards, because today is the 11th of December, and the Game Awards just happened yesterday. So I figured I could give you my thoughts on the nominees, who I voted for, and who ended up winning, and whether or not they deserve it. Now, something you'll have to know about me and the Game Awards is I don't watch this show very often, and that's partially because a lot of the nominees are games that I have not played. And this year is no exception. I could not get around to every big major release. I doubt most people could. So there's just games I haven't played, and I know next to nothing about. However, I do watch a lot of YouTube. I do follow the space. So what you're getting here in this Game Awards discussion is kind of like an outsider perspective looking in. Like what I personally thought should have won. But obviously take that with a grain of salt. If you've played some of these games or you actually, you know, played all of them, then your opinion is probably more valid. Why is my phone? Why my phone dinging? Oh, it's nothing important. You hate when that happens. You're trying to talk about something and your phone dings. I turned it off. We're good. But anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and hop into these categories, shall we? I'm gonna save the big Game of the Year one for the end, because after all, I'm an evil YouTuber and I gotta keep that watch time up. So let's actually start with game direction. The nominees were Last of Us Part 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and Half-Life Alyx. And this is a confusing category for me, because I'm not exactly sure what game direction means in this context. Are we referring to scope? Are we referring to cohesion? Themes? Like, what does game direction mean, really? Some people even use this as a category for, like, creativity and innovation, stuff like that. So it really means different things for different people. But I actually ended up voting on the game that won this award, and that was The Last of Us Part 2. Because I gotta give it to Neil Druckmann and the team. From a creative, directorial perspective, Last of Us Part 2 is pretty well thought out. It took years to make, after all, you know? And not to say that none of these other games didn't have good direction. But like, one of them's an indie game, one of them's a VR title, another one's a remake, so you already kind of had like the baseline established, which really just left like Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima. And I thought Last of Us was just more impressive in this category. So I ended up voting for it, and it ended up winning. So I agree. I agree with the Game Awards. Jeff Keighley, you got it right. You got it right. After that, we have Most Anticipated Game. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't vote for this category, because Most Anticipated Game, to me, is just sort of a useless award. Like, what is this rewarding, right? A game's hype, what people are interested in. Like, I could watch YouTube to figure that out. Elden Ring doesn't need an award for simply, like, existing. That's who ended up winning, by the way. And it's like, what else do we have on here? Like Halo Infinite, Horizon, Forbidden West. Like, all these games are going to do super well regardless. Why does it need an award for being most anticipated? I don't know. I just thought this one was stupid, so I'm not even really going to go into it. Let's move on now to Best Narrative. We have The Last of Us Part 2, 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, a game I've never fucking heard of before. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, and Hades. The winner here was Last of Us Part 2. And yeah, it was pretty divisive of a narrative for sure. It's the one that was talked about the most, I think. Because I knew nothing about Aegis Rim. Ghost of Tsushima has a good story, but it's not very like brought up in circles as like a game's selling point or key strength. Hades is more like gameplay based, and again, Final Fantasy VII Remake is going off the base story with drastic changes to be sure. But a lot of people weren't a big fan of those changes. So yeah, Last of Us Part 2 makes sense. I don't remember what I voted for here. I probably did vote Last of Us Part 2. But yeah, I don't know. That's probably the most memorable narrative out of all of these games. Whether or not you like it is a totally different discussion. I'm talking purely from like a memorable, like Last of Us Part 2 is the one people talked about. All right, next up was Art Direction. And I do remember what I voted for on this one. We have Ghost of Tsushima, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisp, and The Last of Us Part 2. I went Ori, man. Ori's fucking gorgeous. It kind of has that 2D aesthetic, even though it is in 3D. I love the gorgeous backgrounds. I always thought the character designs were good. Just looks like an animated movie, bro. That's not to say the rest of these games look ugly, you know? Games have gotten really beautiful in the past couple of years. But when you talk about like what fits my aesthetic, what I personally like looking at, Ori 100%. Then we have Score and Music, and I think I also went Ori on this one because of Gareth Coker. Piano music, bro. Got some piano tunes. The winner of this category for Score and Music ended up being Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is fair. A lot of people like their RPG soundtracks, and that seemed to be a very non-controversial part. We also had Doom Eternal, Hades, and Last of Us Part 2, all of which had some pretty good soundtracks here and there. But Final Fantasy VII Remake ended up winning that one, even though I voted for Ori. And Art Direction, Ghost of Tsushima actually ended up winning that one. I forgot to mention that, even though I voted for Ori. Ghost of Tsushima won. So there you go. Audio design, I kind of felt bad not voting for Doom and Best Score. So I kind of was like, all right, here you go, Doom. You can have audio design. They have pretty good sound effects with the guns and, you know, ripping out organs and shit. I'm like, here you go, Doom. This one's for you. This one's for you. But Doom didn't even end up winning. Last of Us Part 2 ended up winning over, like I said, Doom, Half-Life Alyx, Ghost of Tsushima, and Resident Evil 3. Which I think was the only category it got nominated for. Considering how big Resident Evil 2 Remake was, 3 definitely kind of underperformed, I think. Next up, we got Performance. We have Laura Bailey as Abby, Ashley Johnson as Ellie, Daisuke Tsuji as Jin, Logan Cunningham as Hades, and Naji Jaterm as Miles Morales. Hope to God I pronounced all those names right. If I didn't, I'm sorry. I just have not heard of these people outside of video games. So there you go. I think I ended up voting Ashley Johnson as Ellie, but Abby ended up winning it, which is like fair. It's basically the same freaking award either way. You're giving it to one of the two major leads. And I picked the wrong one, and they picked the one they thought was better. Which is cool. Whatever. Last of Us voice acting wise, the point, right, is the voice acting and performances in The Last of Us. And any Naughty Dog game is always usually a cut above. And nothing here was going to change that at all, really. I think Miles Morales maybe had the best chance of overthrowing it, but Naughty Dog's just so good at this shit, man. Like, they've mastered really good voice acting in games. Next, we got Games for Impact. Nominees were Spiritfarer, Kentucky Route Zero, If Found, and Through Darkest Times. Tell me why. And I think I voted Spiritfarer here, because I thought it was like a cute game where like characters are about to pass and you fulfill their last request on a boat. Very cute, but also kind of like mellow and a little bit sad in some key areas. So I voted Spiritfarer because it was the only one I had seen in a Let's Play before. But Tell Me Why ended up winning, which apparently has a lot to do with you know, people of different sexual identities and orientations and stuff. And that's a good cause too. I just hadn't heard of it before. So tell me why I ended up winning. Now we got ongoing game. Nominees were Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Call of Duty Warzone, Fortnite, and No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky actually won this one, believe it or not. I know a lot of people have dunked on No Man's Sky in the past, but it seems like every year they keep gradually improving it. And this was the year where, like, Game Awards like, fine, we'll recognize No Man's Sky. You improved the most. I went Fortnite myself because a game changes so much season to season. They're always having these big, huge events. It's never the same. Anytime I log on to Fortnite, something's completely different and new. And it's always to such a huge scope that I voted for that one. But No Man's Sky, sure. Whatever. You do you. Next up, we got Indie Game. Nominees were Spiritfarer, Spelunky 2, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, Carry On, and Hades. And Hades, no surprise, ended up winning this one. Hades kind of felt like the game I missed out on. Like, it looked like it would have been right up my alley. But I didn't see a ton of coverage on it from the YouTubers and game outlets that I followed. So it just kind of flew past me. So hopefully one day I'll pick up Hades. Because the reviews and stuff for it are fucking outstanding. Like, people who love Hades really love Hades. I just haven't given it a try. I think I voted for Fall Guys here because that was the only one I had played. Even though I still have issues with Fall Guys. So even then, like, Hades probably deserved it more. So good call on this one. Next up, we got Debut Indie Game. Nominees were Carry On, Phasmophobia, Mortal Shell, Raji, and Roki. And I didn't know any of these, really, at the time of voting. But I have since come to find out that Phasmophobia is really fucking good. And once you know it, Phasmophobia ended up winning. So, well deserved. Alright, now we got mobile game. Guess what? Don't play no mobile games, but we'll read off the nominations anyway. Call of Duty Mobile, trash. Genshin Impact, trash. Legends of Runeterra, never heard of it before. Pokemon Cafe Mix, trash. And then Among Us. Now, if you haven't watched the Game Awards and you just heard those nominees, which one of those do you think won? Take a guess. Write out in the comments which one you thought won. It's pretty hard to guess, honestly. All right, did you get your votes in? Did you take a guess? Who do you think won Best Mobile Game? What a shock! It's Among Us. Yeah, like no shit. And nobody in their right mind would have picked Call of Duty Mobile, Genshin Impact, a bad Pokemon puzzle game, or a card game that no one's ever played. Like, that was such an easy dub for Among Us. It's unreal. And apparently it runs pretty good on mobile, too. And it's cross-platform with PC stuff, so you can just play with your friends regardless of platform. They put a lot of work in that shit. So regardless of popularity, I think it should have won otherwise. But yeah, it's fairly obvious due to the popularity. And next up, we got community support. Nominees were Destiny 2, Apex Legends, Fall Guys, Fortnite, No Man's Sky, and Valorant. I really didn't want Fall Guys to win here. And I've tried explaining this before. But Fall Guys, to me, while they do have a great Twitter account and have become a lot more responsive, the reason I didn't want them to win this category had to do with their poor response on day one. Anybody who remembers playing Fall Guys will remember that it took several hours for servers to get up. And that's fine, right? That's a reasonable thing to expect. What pissed me off was the fact that they failed to acknowledge that any server issues were happening for at least a solid hour or two before they admitted that it was happening and then sought to fix it afterwards. So that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And sure, they have improved since then. But even if I were to take that instance and throw that instance to the side, you would still have the cheating scandal and all the controversies thrown at it as well. So I didn't want Fall Guys to win. I was pretty much okay with anything winning other than Fall Guys. And once you know it, Fall Guys ended up winning. So, whatever. I don't think it was well-deserved. But they got a funny Twitter account, man. I just wish they had been a little bit more transparent and been a lot smarter on that cheating controversy that went down. Just a lot of dumb decisions that didn't have to happen. Which to me is a sign of like a kind of whack community support. I don't know. I'm getting way too heated over a fucking community support game award. Nobody cares. VR and AR game. We have Dreams, Marvel's Iron Man VR, Star Wars Squadrons, Half-Life Alyx, and The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. This one was pretty easy. I voted Half-Life Alyx, and Half-Life Alyx ended up winning. The rest of these are kind of just short experiences, whereas Half-Life Alyx felt like the natural progression for what VR games could become one day. Like the amount of cool things you could do, the amount of things you could interact with the environment. Like it's just dope. So much attention to detail in Half-Life Alyx, it's insane. And that was a game that when it came out, like a lot of people were fucking into. And rightfully so. It's cool to see VR grow more and more. And get experiences that fit the platform and couldn't just be put anywhere else. Now we got innovation and accessibility. I just voted Assassin's Creed Valhalla here because typically Ubisoft games are very like forward thinking about how many different types of people can play their games and putting in options to help that. But the winner ended up being Last of Us Part 2, which I also thought was well deserved. Naughty Dog also has a lot of good accessibility options. The other nominees I hadn't heard of before, like Grounded I've never heard of, Hyperdot I never heard of, and Watch Dogs Legion I think like just came out. So, weird. It's another Ubisoft game though, so I could have honestly put my vote toward there. Alright, now we got some pretty big categories, some genres if you will. For Best Action Game, Doom Eternal, Half-Life Alyx, Neo, Hades, Streets of Rage 4. I think I voted Doom Eternal. Hades ended up winning. And again, really wish I would have played Hades because it looked right up my alley. But I thought Doom had this one on lock. Maybe I was wrong. I've gotten a lot of these predictions wrong in case you haven't figured that out yet. Next up for Best Action Adventure Game, nominees were Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us Part 2, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. The host made a good point in this category that the winner of Action Adventure Game typically wins Game of the Year. That's been like a trend for the past couple years. This was actually a pretty big category. Whatever ended up winning here could potentially walk away with Game of the Year. And not everything in Game of the Year was in Best Action Adventure, obviously. But like Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us were in there, and it was just kind of a battle between those two to see who would win. I ended up voting for Ghost of Tsushima here. I felt like it had a lot more core gameplay mechanics and features and things that I thought pushed the genre forward, whereas Last of Us just felt like it was already executing on an already good idea. So it's like, what do you want? Do you want the innovation or do you want the execution? And Game Awards decided that it should go to Last of Us Part 2. So, kind of got me wondering about Game of the Year, right? If Last of Us Part 2 has not only won Best Action Adventure Game, but also innovation, accessibility, narrative, all these different categories, kind of starting to look like a sweep for The Last of Us Part 2. But we'll get back to that. Next up, RPG. We have Genshin Impact, Persona 5 Royal, Wasteland 3, Yakuza Like a Dragon, and Final Fantasy VII Remake. Final Fantasy VII Remake won, even if I disagree. I actually did a game club on this game, and many of the games in the Game Awards, actually. Go check out Game Club if you want to hear my extended thoughts on some of these games. But Final Fantasy VII Remake definitely was the most popular. It was also the most controversial, I'd argue. And I voted for Persona 5 Royal instead. Oh well. Fighting game, we got Mortal Kombat 11, Grand Blue Fantasy, Street Fighter 5, One Punch Man, Under Night in Birth, and Under Night in Birth EXE Late CLR. What a long ass name. So many anime fighters, bro. Like I can't keep up with all of them. And you wonder why with names like that. But Mortal Kombat 11 won that one. That one was kind of surprising. I kind of thought it would have gone to Street Fighter 5 because it's like the full version of that game. Like guess more people were fucking with Mortal Kombat. Good for Mortal Kombat, bro. That's awesome. All right, now we got Family Game. Nominees: Crash Bandicoot 4, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Fall Guys, Mario Kart Live, Minecraft Dungeons, Paper Mario: The Origami King. I was okay with really anything other than Paper Mario and Mario Kart Live winning. And neither of them did. Ended up going to Animal Crossing. Well deserved. Sim and strategy game. Crusader Kings 3, Desperados 3, Gears Tactics, and XCOM Chimera Squad. Microsoft Flight Simulator, obviously. Took that fat dub, and again, very well deserved. Like, that game is fucking gorgeous. Had so much shit going on. Ugh. I don't even play Flight Simulator, so Microsoft Flight Simulator, like, maybe I should buy this. I think I need to know how to pilot a plane, bro. And I don't even care. But damn, that game looks so good. All right. We got sports and racing games. Nominees were Dirt 5, F1 2020, FIFA 21, NBA 2K21, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. Got it. That's the one I voted for. That's the one I thought should win, and it did. And then finally, before we get to Game of the Year, we have multiplayer game. Nominees were Among Us, Animal Crossing, Call of Duty, Fall Guys, and Valorant. I voted for Among Us, and would you know it, Among Us actually won. I thought about potentially going with Fall Guys, but Fall Guys still isn't cross-platform yet, so it didn't make sense. And Among Us was just more accessible at that $5 price range. Animal Crossing's multiplayer is also like gimped, and I wasn't about to pick no Call of Duty, Warzone, or Valorant. Are you high? No, sir. So Among Us, easy dub here. I should mention there's also a lot of esports and content creator ones, but you guys don't care about that. I didn't even know half of these people. And they gave out the awards during the pre-show. So, like, they didn't even care about it that much. Anyway, though, with all that being said, Game of the Year. Big category. Nominees are Animal Crossing New Horizons, Doom Eternal, Last of Us Part 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, and Hades. Before I tell you who I voted for and who won, let me tell you who I didn't vote for and why. Hades, number one, because I haven't played it yet and I really want time with it. It's also the indie game, and typically Game Awards likes to throw in an indie game that will, of course, never win. So it felt kind of like the last option here. Not that it's the worst game of this bunch, far from it. It just felt like the least likely to win. I also didn't vote for Final Fantasy VII Remake just because of the controversy that played into that game and the game club discussion I had. Just didn't felt like it really like earned it, all right? And then the other 4 games, I feel like all had a pretty equal shot to really win it. That being Animal Crossing, Doom Eternal, Ghost of Tsushima, and Last of Us Part 2. And the one I voted for, believe it or not, was actually Ghost of Tsushima. What? The Nintendo guy didn't vote for Animal Crossing? And I did think about voting for Animal Crossing. And had, you know, some of these other ones not came out, would have probably voted for it. But, I don't know. Animal Crossing had a lot of problems this year, man. Like, it was really good for the first 2 or 3 months. But then, like, there wasn't enough content to keep people around. The updates were small. They were adding in features from other Animal Crossing games that were supposed to be in New Horizons, but weren't at launch. And, you know, it's just not for everybody, you know? It really is for, like, a good subset of players. And everybody else just kind of moved on. Even among the Nintendo crowd. Like, there are other multiplayer games that people went back to. And other bigger solo adventures that people went back to. It was really hot for a month or two, but I'm looking for something more consistent. And Ghost of Tsushima, I thought, was that more consistent game. It blew a lot of people away. I thought it made the biggest impact. And the game club discussion I had with Zach really turned me on to all the cool shit Ghost of Tsushima was doing. Like the wind mechanic, bro. The fucking art style. The fact that you can play the game in black and white. The fact that it's not really a Souls-like game. I don't know, that shit looked dope. But the winner, and what actually won Game of the Year, was neither Animal Crossing or Ghost of Tsushima or even Doom Eternal. The actual winner was Last of Us Part 2. Yeah, a clean sweep for Last of Us Part 2. It won pretty much every category it was nominated in. And if it didn't, it was probably like something smaller instead that another game won. The Last of Us 2 won every major important award. And of course, that got a lot of people talking about, like, is the Game Awards rigged? What does all that mean? And I don't know, I felt like I talked to Jay about it because we were watching it together. And he made a really good point in that a lot of how people view games is in small, insular communities and echo chambers. And so a lot of what I heard about Last of Us Part 2 was pretty negative about the story, about the content, about the playing of the game. But that's a small group of people. Because outside of that insular YouTube community and people who played Last of Us 1 and didn't like 2, you had this much larger majority of people who not only super enjoyed it, but review outlets who gave it perfect scores, from a graphics perspective being so impressive, from music being so impressive, the options and accessibility. Yeah, when you really look at it from that perspective, it almost seems like the obvious choice. And it's also the game that I felt like had the most discussion. Not all of it was positive, but unlike Final Fantasy VII, I felt like the controversy actually helped Last of Us Part 2. Because it got more people to play it, it kind of got more people on the game's side a little bit more, and it made people interested in Last of Us Part 1. So while I personally don't agree that Last of Us Part 2 should have won Game of the Year, I don't even think it should have won, like, every category it was nominated for. But no, like, don't get it twisted, it still is a very good game. And in a year with a lot of very good games, it's only disappointing because I would have liked some of these other ones to walk away with more awards. But oh well, that's how it is. A lot of the times, Game Awards isn't even really about the awards, it's about the announcements, it's about Sephiroth getting into Smash, it's about new Fortnite editions and Dorito ads. It's barely an award show, half the time. But that's the part I pay attention to. That's the part I want to do well. It just sucks that Game Awards doesn't always pay attention to that, and you can really see that in some of the winners. Again, not to say Last of Us 2 doesn't deserve some wins in some of these categories. I just would have liked more variety, especially given how much good shit came out. If this was like a bad year and there were just a lot of garbage games that came out, fair. But no, like Last of Us Part 2 had some really good adversaries. And you can make the case for like 4 of them that they probably should have beat out Last of Us Part 2. But it was still a front runner, nonetheless, regardless. And I think that's what people need to remember, is like, even though you might not like Last of Us 2, and you've heard from the popular YouTuber who didn't like Last of Us 2, he does not represent everybody's opinion. Your opinion doesn't represent everyone's opinion. And there's a much bigger majority and audience to think about. So those are my thoughts on Game Awards 2020. And yeah, pretty much took the entire episode. We only got about a minute left of this footage. I should mention this castle is fairly annoying. It's a lot of waiting around for pushing blocks to come down. And that Koopa Kid fight where he like pokes his head out of a pipe and you're trying to dodge a fireball. There's so much luck going on, bro. It's insane. Oh shit, what happened? Oh. My controller died. Well, I guess now is as good a place as any to stop. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye, everyone.